At 6:30 a.m. local time, two U.S. Navy MH-60 Romeo Seahawks from the USS Eisenhower and USS Gravely were providing top cover for a naval task force as it patrolled the volatile waters of the southern Red Sea. While the patrol had been relatively quiet so far, everything was about to change in a matter of seconds. Unknown to the Seahawk pilots, a formation of Houthi fast attack boats operating near Hodeidah had the commercial escort and its high-value assets in their sights, and they let loose a salvo of guided rockets and bursts of machine gun fire on the Singapore-flagged container ship Maersk Hangzhou as it steamed through the southern Red Sea about 55 nautical miles southwest of Al Hodeidah, Yemen. The Houthi plan was simple: swarm the cargo ship, board her quickly, and seize control before her crew could send a distress signal. But there was just one problem. Two U.S. Navy MH-60 Romeo Seahawk helicopters were already airborne and closing fast. Launched from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Gravely, the Seahawks were call signs Lancer 71 and Lancer 72. Their job was to perform maritime security overwatch and investigate any suspicious-looking surface contacts. Pretty easy, right? Well, what they encountered instead was a full-scale hostile boarding attempt underway against a U.S.-escorted commercial vessel. The Maersk Hangzhou had requested assistance the moment the boats closed within visual range. The ship had onboard security contractors with Trident Group, and as soon as the Houthi small boats began closing within 6 nautical miles, they took up defensive positions. Only armed with M4 rifles and an M240 machine gun, their firepower was no match for what the Houthis were packing. On board, the Houthis had rockets, RPGs with thermobaric warheads, and belt-fed PKMs that all outranged and outgunned what the merchant vessel had. Within the next few minutes, the small boats will have closed the distance and be right alongside, trying to board her. The Seahawks responded immediately to the distress call. Within seconds of receiving clearance, both helicopters accelerated at a speed of 160 knots to close the 26 nautical mile gap between them and the vessel. But time was not on their side. With that closure rate, it would take 9 minutes to get there, about 5 minutes too late to stop the Houthis. So the pilots had to devise a plan fast that hit the Houthis hard before they could scramble over the merchant's side. At 6:31 a.m., the Romeos picked up 4 Iranian-supplied Boghammer-style fast attack boats on radar. Each boat was 7 to 10 meters long, closing on the Maersk Hangzhou at 50 knots in a tight, converging formation. On board each Boghammer were 3 to 4 Houthi militants armed with PKM machine guns, RPGs, and AK-47 rifles. A pair of them called thermobaric Taba-14 RPGs. These weapons can penetrate up to 300 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor. The average hull of merchant ships like the Maersk Hangzhou is just 25 millimeters thick, which meant these RPGs could easily slice through the ship. Making matters worse was that every boat was rigged with Starlink terminals, relaying real-time data to command elements in Hodeidah about what was going on. The use of Starlink was no coincidence. These terminals allow the Houthis to accurately coordinate boat swarm tactics, receiving real-time imagery from overhead drones, coastal spotters, and command nodes. This wasn't just a raid, it was a coordinated strike built off Iranian asymmetric naval doctrine. The Maersk Hangzhou, while itself unarmed, wasn't defenseless. At a range of 1,800 meters, her embarked security team opened fire with M240 Bravo machine guns mounted on hardened positions along the stern and port side. They managed to damage one of the boats, but couldn't stop all 4. In 47 seconds, the fast boats were now at 600 meters and would soon be within RPG range. And it soon came. Though their suppressive fire knocked out one of the attacker's rudder assemblies, the RPG gunner fired a round from Boat 2 that came within 3 meters of the ship's superstructure, which is the part of the ship that sticks up above the main deck where the crew controls the ship. Taking this out would mean the ship would lose its ability to run away or coordinate a defense. At this moment, it was clear the security detail was moments away from being overrun. And that's when the Seahawks arrived. Due to the dog defense of the ship's security team, the Boghammers were standing fast at around 600 meters so they could pummel them with RPGs before boarding. This delay gave the Lancer 71 and 72 enough time to close the gap, so that by 6:39 they were just a mile away. With the Romeos cleared to engage, the only thing left was to identify which ones to take out first. Located here under the nose of the aircraft is the AN/APS-153V radar. While the radar had picked up all 4 boats while still 42 kilometers out, due to dense sea clutter, it needed more data to get an accurate course, speed, and profile of each attack craft. The radar was tracking 32 separate contacts in the area at the time, but the pilot soon adjusted it to narrow pulse mode. In this configuration, the radar sent out energy at 0.5 to 1 microsecond intervals to get the high-fidelity data needed to make a beeline for the Houthi boats. But this system just helped get the Romeos vectored in the right direction. Thanks to these two functions of its radar, it gets right over the top of the Houthi boats. This APS-153 radar uses a special mode called Moving Target Indicator, or MTI, to help track the targets, and it is pretty ingenious how it does it. As the contact moves, the MTI exploits Doppler shifts caused by the relative motion between the radar and different parts of the target. Think of it like hearing a motorcycle roar past you on the street. As it gets closer, the pitch changes. That's the Doppler effect. The radar does the same thing with radio waves, and by analyzing those shifts, it can tell if there's something solid in the water or just another wave. Once the MTI confirms there is something there, the pilots can use an inverse synthetic aperture radar, or ISAR, to construct a detailed image of the target using the same Doppler shifts. With confirmation of a moving target and high-resolution images in real time, the pilots now know for sure they have the Houthi boats in their sights. And now it's time to let loose. Each Seahawk was armed with two GAU-21 50 caliber crew-served machine guns on either side. These beasts fire up to 1,100 rounds per minute with a maximum effective range of 1,850 meters. The rounds were a mix of armor-piercing incendiary and tracer rounds, designed to help puncture the thin-skinned boats. But it was the Houthis who got in the first shots. At 6:40, the Houthi boats opened fire on the helicopters. PKM machine gun tracers flashed past the Seahawks, with some rounds passing within 15 meters. This was the last mistake they ever made. The Seahawks immediately descended to 150 feet to engage. At the same time, they began dispensing countermeasures as a precaution. Each aircraft dropped 12 MJU-68B flares and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles that formed an infrared and radar reflective cloud behind the helicopters, in case the Houthis fired an IR-guided missile at them. Once deployed, these flares reached up to 2,200 degrees Celsius and burned for nearly 2.5 seconds, more than enough to lure off any heat-seeking man-pads or shoulder-fired missiles. While no missile launch was detected, the pilots weren't taking any chances. Then, all hell broke loose. At 6:41, Lancer 71 locked onto Boat 1. The door gunner sent 3 bursts of 50 caliber rounds its way. The rounds punched through the engine block and ignited the fuel cell. A fireball soon erupted and sent debris skyward as the boat sank within 45 seconds. Before the first boat had even sunk, Lancer 71 swung left and lined up Boat 2. A quick burst disabled the rudder. The gunner followed up with a full 3-second spray, and the boat lost steering completely. It listed hard, filled with water, and capsized at 6:42. Both helicopters then shifted to Boat 3, which got a double dose as it took fire from both helicopters. Within seconds, dozens of armor-piercing rounds punched holes below the boat's waterline. The crew attempted to bail, but the boat slipped beneath the surface by 6:44. After sinking the third boat, both helicopters began taking turns firing at Boat 4. However, after seeing all their buddies delivered to Davy Jones' locker, the fourth boat had already turned tail to run away. The boat retreated northwest in a trail of smoke as rounds continued peppering its hull. The Seahawks did not pursue it since they had to stay with the merchant. In less than 7 minutes, the 2 helicopters had sunk 3 bog hammers and fired roughly 1,800 rounds of ammunition. But unfortunately for the Houthis, this would not be the end of the U.S. response in retaliation for this unprovoked attack. U.S. Central Command decided destroying a couple of boats wouldn't be enough punishment for the Houthis, and they needed to take stronger measures to teach them a lesson. Within 8 hours of the attack, the USS Gravely opened fire on known Houthi coastal radar sites used to give data to Houthi attack boats with its 5-inch Mark 45 Mod 4 naval gun. The ship fired a total of 92 rounds of high explosive and air burst rounds. These 70-pound projectiles have a max range of about 9 miles and a speed of around 2,600 feet per second. The Gravely steamed up and down the Yemeni coast with impunity as it bombarded one radar installation after another. In total, 3 coastal radar installations at Jabal al-Tair, al-Mocha, and Ras Isa were all taken out before sundown. The Houthis had been using each of these sites to track coalition ships in the Red Sea over the past 2 weeks. Their destruction degraded Houthi maritime surveillance capabilities by at least 60%, according to post-strike battle damage assessments by drones.